All right, we got Dr. Sever and Laura Morisano of Hattingen. Thank you guys for joining the podcast. I wanted to ask you guys pretty straightforward because it seems like you guys have become very, very popular on the forum with repairs, especially hairline punch outs. And I've talked to a couple of surgeons. There seems to be sort of like this differing opinion of, is it better to camouflage the hairline and just kind of fill in the gaps and try to make it as natural as possible? If you can kind of explain why you prefer, doing hairline punch outs as opposed to either camouflaging or doing laser surgery.
Oh, hello, hello.
Hey, who we got Rolandas in the house. Rolandas is a YouTuber from the UK. He's got a big channel, a lot of engagement. He's going to be posting this on his platform as well. And I think he's a fan of yours as well.
Oh, yes. Huge fan. First of all, thanks much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. And thank you, Melvin, and both of you doctors. And nice to meet you both.
We were just discussing, we went right into the topics of repairs. And I was saying that we're getting absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of repair work that we've been doing over the past, I guess, about year and a half, 2 years. It's really taken off. This was foreseen by a lot of the seniors of the industry already back, I guess, 07, 08, 09, when FUE started coming in, and it really developed really fast. And a lot of the veterans of the industry were sort of warning, that this may happen, that it sort of democratized the entire industry. The whole bunch of people came in, and it allowed for this very standardized protocols and this whole sort of industrial development of FUE and of hair transplants. And all of a sudden, nobody talked about what are we doing with the grafts. The whole discussion switched almost exclusively in almost all of the meetings to the donor area. And I guess there's a whole generation of people that have come into the industry that the recipient area was sort of secondary. It was all about how can we extract, and how can we extract as fast and as many as possible. So now we're steamrolled with low hairlines. And this has been a major issue, and in all of the old hair transplant textbooks, don't place the hairline too low. It's one of the biggest errors you can do in hair transplantation, because it's such a hassle to correct it. Like lowering a hairline, not an issue. You can connect it to the eyebrows if you want to. Bringing it back up is a huge problem, and so we sort of stumbled. What do we do? Lasers, to finally get to answering you. Lasers, that's a little bit of a blasphemy in hair transplants. It's a limited donor area, so trying to save the donor resources. We really like the laser approach. It can be very effective, obviously, and very fast, but trying to save the hair, and a lot of these guys are continuing to lose their hair further back, so trying to move it back or put it back in the donor area. So just as a sort of a respect for the limited donor hair, camouflaging it is difficult. A lot of these are multi-graft, so you have to come in with one or two rows of very fine singles, so even lowering the hairline even further, which just exacerbates the problem even more. If they're really big multi-grafts, you can still see them behind, so they're still lurking in the background.
Plus, in some cases, what I noticed at least is that if they have a very straight line and you have big grafts, right, with 3, 4, even 5 hairs in the hairline, not that densely packed, but it just gives the volume. From far away, you think, wow, it's such a nice hairline. And when you go close, you see there are actually big grafts in front. But I noticed even if we do a little test, like we remove 100 up to 200 grafts, just in between, we just play a bit with the hairline. I remove a few, and sometimes we get the result what the patient needs, right? Even after one test, he's so happy after like a week or 2 weeks when that heals. if there are grafts with 3-4 hairs, I just thin them out. I don't extract the entire graft. I just take from a 3-hair graft 2, and it's left 1, so it's nice and soft. And you get with little a lot.
Yeah, so that's basically the approach is obviously using the smallest possible punches to try to avoid any type of visible scarring. And what Laura was saying is a sort of a test session. This is what we like to do. Just to minimize the risk as little as possible, just to see that the healing characteristics of the patients are okay. So we'll do a small punch-out session. In the vast majority of the case, it goes wonderfully, but then we can proceed. And it's annoying because they have to come for multiple sessions until we get the desired result. And usually the approach is as much as needed, but as little as possible. So step by step until we reach a point where they say, okay, it's fine like this. Like we can't remove 2,000 grafts from the front. That's completely unrealistic. And you run the risk of just massive and scar confluence and visible scarring is something where, where they get a suntan and the white scars are there. So breaking up this excessive linearity. So just punching in between and creating, irregularities and imperfections and slight asymmetries, just a little bit of natural. And a lot of the guys are happy after 2 sessions. Like, well, that's enough. It looks fine. Thanks.
I would
Yeah.
also say from me that I've noticed it's not only the issue of the thick grafts being, in the front, but also the angle of them, that the way they're implanted. So even if you try to put singles in the front, you're still gonna see the difference of the angulation, quite dramatic sometimes. And that's probably one of the biggest, kind of getaways that's a transplant, essentially. Not to mention
The angle that sometimes is not flat enough, that's one issue. But a lot of times the angle is fairly okay, but they just didn't they didn't consider the curvature of the hair shaft. Yeah, so instead of it looking down or slightly sideways to give that natural sort of slight cowlick, and some of them just stick out after a certain length. And regardless, like you gotta put a ton of gel for it to sort of lay flat.
That's such a great point. I actually never myself thought about that the hair, we should consider the actual, curvature of the hair, even though if it's, straight. And I've actually never seen anyone talking about it. So that's that's very valid point to bring to the table. And how difficult it is to see during surgery under the microscope, the curvature, how difficult it is to angle it. I assume it's quite a task.
We have different methods. If it's there, of course, but not everybody knows the hairs are removed in 2 methods. The strip method or the FUE method. By the strip method, it's very easy because the hairs are longer in the strip and you see that curve. With FUE grafts, it's a little bit trickier, but you can also see. So so for FUT, obviously we don't shave the strip. We work from very large strips, and we still do a lot of them. There's still for us, there's still a very viable option, and we can help a ton of patients with really big FUTs. But we leave the hair a little bit longer. We don't shave it completely, so it always has a couple of millimeters because it helps us see where this curvature goes. And this is, of course, absolutely crucial when you're doing eyebrows or when you're doing temple work. And you look at the end of the surgery, when you see one graft that's sort of sticking out, and it really sticks out. You turn the graft a little bit. But for FUE, it's a little bit trickier, like Laura said, because you have to shave it down really down close to the skin to be able to extract it properly. But there are ways to tell when you plant it how to where this curvature is going to develop.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. That with FE, it's completely shaved. Whether it's visible under actual, skin, the part of it or not. Quite tricky, isn't it?
There's some tricks involved. It's a little bit technical.
So here's a result from Hattingen, Hairline. This is, I believe, 2,900 grafts. It really is impressive, and I think it kind of touches on the point that you guys were talking about, how you value more of a natural hairline as opposed to an aggressive. Because I see what happens nowadays is like they'll start from the tip and they'll just make it flat. I wanted to get your take. What you were discussing, Sever, exactly kind of matches this case that I wanted to show you guys of this famous bodybuilder who had a hair transplant in Turkey at a you know, what I would describe as a hair mill. And so let me try to close up here to kind of show you.
I don't think we
And
need a
I
close
know
up.
it's kind of poor lighting, but I think you could kind of see what you were discussing, right? You were,
Yeah.
you know, you were saying it's very, very straight, and then it kind of curves down. And here you can kind of see some of the angles look off. It looks strange.
And it goes the temper point.
And it's too low. Like if you were to
Yeah,
look at the
very low.
he's obviously in the mimic muscles over here, and so the problem is this lack of long-term perspective. Yeah.
Mm.
What if he loses more hair? At some point, the wrinkles are going to come up, and it's just going to look even more odd as he continues to age. So this thought of doing something that you can grow into over the next years or decades, that should be the guiding principle. And it was the guiding principle for decades in the hair transplant industry and at meetings, and it just got thrown out the window. Yeah, like the whole focus changed almost exclusively at professional meetings, at the congresses and workshops on the donor area. The recipient area took the back seat. And there was a bunch of us, a whole bunch that were saying that this is not right. And there's a whole bunch of new people, and they're not learning anything about hairlines or graft distribution, or it's just how can we take out as many as possible and as fast as possible. So
But this case looks terrible. Is he unhappy? Do you know anything about?
So this is a guy who I don't follow bodybuilding that much, so I don't know too much about it. I think he's one of the most popular bodybuilders for sure now in this era, and I think he's either 30 or in his early 30s. So he's a young guy, but so that's how he was before the procedure. That was his hairline before, and obviously this is how it looks like now.
this exclusive focus on the frontal shock. As soon as it turns just a couple of degrees, the whole thing collapses. The whole construct sort of goes off.
Yeah, and there this is where you can kind of see really where the big issues are happening.
I think
It
in
ju-
the middle it's too low. Everything is too low. If we see him in like live, for sure we think it's way too low.
yeah, I would agree. I think it's way too low, not to mention the fact that he's young, not to mention that his career requires him to take androgens that accelerate hair loss. It's just like a recipe for disaster.
But that's strange because the bodybuilders are they have a very keen eye for proportion and aesthetics and stuff like that. And being a bodybuilder, I suppose he's pretty wide. And
Yeah.
by lowering his hairline, it makes his head look wide too. Like I would have done it completely different, but then again, I tend to be a lot of guys consider I'm way too conservative. I'm way too. And also another thing that people don't consider is that speaking about the direction and angulation of hair growth. As soon as you have a little bit of length, if your hair falls naturally, if you don't put a lot of gel or a lot of time with blow drying it and whatnot, it'll always look a little bit lower. Yeah, like you see me here, my hairline's here, I pull it back. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
falls. I don't particularly try to put it down. Yeah, but it just falls like that natural, right? And putting the hairline here, say I want to look like this. This is the framing I want. Okay, I'm going to implant the hair here. As soon as it grows a little bit, it looks like it's here. This is the natural masculine, the male hairline. Laura, pull your hair back. Huh? It's only females that have that, and then she has like a fantastic, like
Yeah, she's got so much hair, man.
And even they have a little, you can see a little bit of a trend, but these completely closed off. They just don't happen.
You can see a trend. It's like across the board, all the clinics, doctors that don't know any better, they just do that. They just do all of the hairlines. They're pretty much the same, straight, low. No, there's no correct angles. It's crazy. It's like this. So one person taught everyone. Because it seems like they all do the same thing.
This is what his hairline looked like when he was young, when he was younger, before like really the recession started. So even if you wanted to be aggressive with the hairline, you would probably be like, let me look at what hairline looked like at a young age to kind of follow that same pattern. That's
the
what,
thing. It looks so artificial. You can tell right away it's a hair transplant from a mile away.
yeah,
That's
I
the
mean,
problem.
when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, this is definitely something's off, right? Why is it such a straight line? It's like a wall of hair, just like a straight wall of hair that just abruptly connects to the temple peaks. Very abruptly, not like no finesse, no feathering, no micro irregularities, no nothing. It's just like
blending.
just
The temporal peak is 2 centimeters away only.
Yeah.
yeah, right. It's you know,
And
and
there's no sense of proportion or aesthetics or knowing when to leave. But that's, I just hope he doesn't have any major hair loss in his family. That's the big hope.
I hope so too. He seems like a nice guy, and I just want to stress the fact that I wanted to present this to you guys, not to pick on him or to do anything like that, but I wanted it to be an educational thing where if you're considering a hair transplant or you have hair loss and you're thinking, oh well, you look up to someone on social media and they make a decision. And there was another surgeon who made a video about him on Instagram, and he was just getting torn apart by this guy's fans. They were just saying, oh well, look at your hairline, or what, they were just not comprehending why this is not a good idea, why this was a bad idea. You could be a good person, a good social media following and everything, and make a bad choice, make a very bad choice. And I think in this case, he made a very bad choice. Unfortunately, I don't think he was very educated in terms of hair transplants, or he probably didn't even think about future hair loss. He thought, okay, yeah, whatever the clinic puts, hey, they want to do this really low hairline. Sure, I think it looks
Again,
pretty good.
I think it's expectation because you're not specialist on a hair at all. If you are like a bodybuilder, you're doing bodybuilding, so you would expect like, look, I'm going to this doctor. He's obviously a professional. He would advise me what to do, and he would do the right thing. That's what we normally expect with any field when it comes to medicine, but not with the hair transplants. They most of these clinics, they think about patients as a customer essentially.
Yeah, it's a category.
What I think it happens sometimes with the stars, kind of like even actors or in sports or music or so. I think the manager finds somebody for them. It's not them doing the research. And I think that's a problem because the manager looks, oh, who has better publicity? Let's go there. It's going to be nice because we take some pics and we put them on the media after. So the patient himself doesn't choose, probably.
And some of these cases, the money flows the other direction. So it's
that's exact. So in this case, what happened, and I think he admitted it on a podcast, is the clinic, which this particular clinic, I'm not going to say their name, but their MO is to go after social media influencers, give them free surgery. I would assume they're giving them money as well. And they kind of they kind of pick them up in a limo, they put them up in a nice hotel, and it's sort of like a vacation / hair transplant for them. And in return, they're all on their marketing materials and everything like that, which is fine. I don't think there's a problem with that in itself. Problem is that they're going to a really bad clinic doing that. This particular clinic is going after a lot of stuff. Like they've done UFC fighters, they've done other YouTubers and things like that. So they're trying to kind of get their name just by doing celebrities, and they do the same exact hairline on everybody. It's almost like they just have a stencil.
It makes you think about it. If that's their best job they can do, what the average patient can expect.
Yeah.
Like, really think about it.
Standardized. No, it's standardized. It's protocol. Yeah, it's they move them from station to station. The station of the hairline, there's a laser instrument with a red beam, and you want it lower or higher. Yeah,
they're probably just drawing like that exactly by the laser straight.
Yeah. And that's how they come up. But the even bigger, so that's obviously the fundamental issue. But a bigger issue for the future is going to be this. And I'm going to maybe it sort of talks to I've had with colleagues behind the scenes at the workshops and meetings and such. And for us, It's an issue. So let's say we have somebody that we extract 200 grafts, right? How much money are you going to take, right? The guy's already paid his money. His you know, the team, the anesthetic, the time, all of this, yeah, and you have to proceed very carefully. It takes longer, yeah. You charge your normal graft, and you know, for compared to Turkey, we're expensive, right? But it comes out to, you know, a couple of hundred. I'm going to talk in Swiss franc, but US dollars, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Let's say 800, 900, yeah. And it's in a country like Switzerland, where you know, in the US or the UK, right? And you know, there's different costs for salaries and staff and the rent and all of this fixed costs, right? It's just plain business, yeah. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, you're covering your fixed cost, all the materials, all of this, yeah. It's not a money maker by no stretch of the imagination, right? But then they become your patient, right? Now it's all of a sudden it's your patient, and a lot of these guys, like, and I understand, you know, it has to be super frustrating, right? One bad decision and then your whole life, and it's for us, and then it becomes our patient, and the a lot of discussion going behind the scenes is a lot of doctors say, you know what,
It's not worth it.
It's not, or I'm going to charge 15 euros a graft, and because or what the even newer one is, we're not going to touch it anymore. We're not going to touch it anymore. Yeah. And now these are like ethical guys that have been doing this for decades. Are saying, listen, it's for the patient, but it's risky because a lot of these patients are coming with such high hopes and high expectations that they're going to be fixed, and it's completely difficult. They've read so much, and they're sort of in the bushes with so many details and so many they can't see the bigger picture anymore, huh? And then so you gotta be the you know, counseling and it's a very, very difficult situation for the entire industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an anecdote because obviously, as you know, I run the Hair Restoration Network where I see this firsthand, and what I've seen is sort of like a lot of the times, unfortunately, repair patients come and they do the research after the fact, after they've already had a really disastrous result. And then they'll go to an ethical, really good, high quality clinic that is known for doing repairs. But then when it doesn't turn out like to their expectations, their focus shifts from the original clinic that completely destroyed them to, you know, ethical guy or girl that did their best, but just it didn't come out the way they wanted because they're already in a really bad situation and the results are never going to look the same. Unfortunately, it's never going to be sort of like painting on a blank canvas. You're now trying to you're trying to make this disaster painting look presentable, and there's only so much you can do. So yeah, I definitely empathize with surgeons, and I know in one case, and I'm not going to say who the surgeon was, but there was a case where actually the surgeon lost money taking this patient in and opening their clinic because, you know, I think to open the clinic, there's a baseline of maybe to have your staff and everything, let's say $2,000 to just baseline to cover paying your staff, to have the doors open. And I think they actually charge less than that because they just were going to do small little punch outs and things like that. So they ended up losing money. And not only that, then this particular patient was really coming at them strong and wasn't even mentioning the clinic that botched them to begin with. And it was like right after the fact, like maybe a few weeks after the surgery, saying, you know, complaining about different things. And so it becomes sort of like to the surgeon is like, why am I doing this? Right? I'm not making any money off of it. If anything, it could affect my reputation because now I have this patient, you know, saying negative things about me, and I'm just trying to help. So it kind of puts them in between a rock and a hard place. So
this is a real issue, and it could very well be that a lot of repair patients are going to be left stranded, yeah, because a lot of us are just going to take the decision at some point and say, listen, you know, what are we doing here? Like, we're sure help the patient, but they're putting such high expectations on somebody to correct, and you're looking at the results and look what natural hairlines and what great work they produce, but it's not virgin anymore.
So what's your idea?
My idea really is this, just to educate patients, right? Because managing expectations is everything. If the patient can understand, I went to a clinic that gave me an unnatural hairline. It's going to be a multi-step process, so I'm going to have to do multiple punch outs, and then if I want to add density, if my donor's already not looking that good, you have to just accept the fact that that donor is going to be even more harvested if you want to add more hair. If you want to take more hair out of here, even if it's 500 grafts, it may be visible. Focusing on all, like, you're trying to be a perfectionist at this point in the game, you need to throw that out the window. That's a bad way to look at it if
But
you're already in that position.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, it's patient education, patient education. If you know how many times we've heard this over the past decades, Melvin, it's like the mantra, and it's not happening. Huh? Like, you get these clinics that do, I've heard some wild numbers of 50 surgeries a day. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're working like basically 24 hours a day in shifts, and they got 80 to 100 people doing marketing and just flooding the cyberspace. Go ahead, try and educate. Yeah, try and educate people that a young generation that's affected by TikTok brain. Yeah, where the attention span is more or less of a goldfish, and this is a real issue. This is
It
real.
is, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Have you guys heard of? There's a professor, I think he's at NYU or Columbia, Jonathan Haidt, huh? And he's writing books, and he's taking this to almost on a political level as a matter of public health. But they're saying that they're noticing in universities since 2014. He's putting his finger on the year 2014, where the students that are coming in are different. Yeah, and for years he was, what's wrong? Are we getting old? Like, what? Like, no. The iPhone got 2007 and Facebook and everything. So these guys were young people, these whatever teenagers are just entering, and all of a sudden they got this, and
oh yeah,
the attention span gone massively down, and the very fragile and sensitive. So it's it's not a matter of discussion anymore. It's a reality. So how do we educate? People don't have the will to invest, to read. If you don't present it with some sort of, in the back of a limo and lights and people dancing in the back.
I think, to be honest, nowadays it's a double-edged sword. So everyone, so the biggest YouTubers, for example, or any celebrities, they're getting transplants. They're getting these bad transplants, and I think just because of that, it gives them more publicity, the good publicity as they think, but also it will give soon enough bad publicity, because people will start realizing, wait a minute, that looks a bit odd, and because they have such a massive reach already. The way I look at it, in the next couple of years, it will get better and easier to educate, because you will show this example. Look, we talked about it. Does it look natural to you? And everyone gonna, a lot of people gonna see it across the board that something is wrong. So yeah, to me, the more this high-profile cases online with the bad work, they're, better it is for the hair transplant future in general, because yeah, we will see in 5-10 years. So once these people start losing more hair, and which they will, they're going to be with this unnatural hair growing in the natural angles. This is going to be very obvious.
So good or bad, some people don't care, as long as they get publicity. Yeah. And there is a new aesthetic that's being formed that, yes, I know it looks artificial. I like it. I like the artificial look. I mean, look at all the inflatable tire.
That's funny you said that. There is a sense of truth. So I think that with these cases, the vast majority of the public, they just see the hair grew and they think, oh, it's a success. Oh, look, his hairline is straight. He doesn't look like he has hair loss anymore. They're not really looking at the nuances of how close was the hairline placed to his temple points, to his temple peaks. The micro, that's sort of like an educated person who knows about hair. But my goal is not really necessarily to reach out those mass. I mean, I would love to reach the masses, but that's impossible because we will never have the capacity or just sheer marketing power that these clinics have. You mentioned 50 surgeries per day. All right. So even a cheap clinic let's say is charging $2,000 per surgery, that's $100,000 a day that they're making, and they're paying their staff probably nothing. They're putting almost all of that money towards more marketing. So there's no way you can compete with that. I mean, it's impossible, and that's only one clinic. Now think that 100 clinics that are operating the same way, doing the same thing, putting that same type of finances and marketing. You cannot compete with that. But what you can do is educate those guys that then become the guys that come to the hair restoration network, the guys that start researching because they realize, like, hey, this doesn't look good. I'm not happy with this. And so then how do we educate those guys to say, hey, look, I understand you've had a bad hair transplant and you're not happy. And now you found doctors that are good that can fix it. But at this point, now you have to realize, like, it's not never going to be perfect. And you're going to have a trade-off. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to either you accept that you're gonna have some scars on the on your hairline because you're gonna do punch outs. You have to accept that, hey, your donor's never gonna look perfect because this other clinic over harvested. Like, there's things that you just have to accept. It's gonna be the way it is. Nothing's gonna change that. A doctor, as good as Dr. Marasano, Hattingen is, they're not miracle workers. They can't undo what's already been done. They can only try to move forward. That's really what my goal would be, is to reach those guys that come to the Hattingen, that their perspective changes. It's not like, demanding perfection at this point.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely being realistic and managing expectations. And for us, like you said before, stuck between a rock and a hard place, huh? Because the guys that put a lot of high hopes, and it takes numerous sessions to repair something, to bring them to a decent place where you can say, okay, you can live with this. It looks all right. It looks natural. It just doesn't jump in your face anymore. Yeah, is frustrating. Yeah, especially if they're traveling large distances, and I get that. I would not want to be in their shoes, right? But there is honest discussion behind the scenes for a lot of doctors are saying, listen, massively the prices, or we're just not going to do, we're not going to touch it. Yeah. And if this message gets out, then people will people hear and say, okay, hold on. It's like, I'm not going to jump on the next plane and go for the cheapest offer that I can get. Yeah. Let me take a step back. Yeah. But that's, we're practicing medicine, so we have to help the patients, right? The money, that's why everybody's jumping it, because you live well in this business, and not back in the 80s, $30 a graft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But still, yeah. So we have to help the patients, but it's a really difficult situation.
From what I've noticed, I'm not well, on hair restoration network, there's a lot of people, or majority of people, that are somewhat educated. They have somewhat of a perspective that, look, they kind of see what's possible, what's negative. If they messed up, they kind of understand. But I'm quite active on other places, Reddit groups or Facebook groups, and I've seen recently. So I've been there for quite a few years already, like 4 or 5 years, and I've seen people back then getting a transplant, clearly bad one. I could tell right away back then, and they were happy. Everything's fine. They promoting that clinic doctor, whatever it is. But now, recently, they coming out and they posting this, their pictures, like, I was actually, looking at my hairline for last a year or something, and I feel like, well, it's not quite perfect. It's, I might be nitpicky, whatnot, but how do I make it better? So even these people that were very adamant, no, I don't care, it looks amazing, shut up, don't talk to me, they also coming back. So that's why I'm somewhat of an optimistic in this case, because even these people, they kind of look, you cannot live your life when you see on a daily basis that, look, something's wrong. People see, even they tell themselves that it's fine. They subconsciously think that, like, look, it's not really. And eventually it's just going to break them, and they're going to, like, look, something's up. And I can guarantee the same YouTuber is going to happen to them the same. I've seen quite a few of them, quite popular ones, that they went. There's this Bulgarian YouTuber. He went to, again, Turkey, promoted. Like, he didn't do the research. That he had such a bad work. A year later, he went there and admitted, like, look, I messed up. They did a really bad job. And then he went to he went to Dr. Zarev recently, and yeah, obviously night and day difference, in terms of the work, the quality of work. And now he's all about this, of course. So I'm fairly optimistic when it comes to future, because, like I said, the more and more people will be posting, like, that they're unhappy, and more people will see, because there's more and more people like us who are as well educating compared to even 10 years ago. It was almost nothing there.
Yeah, and you can get good results. So it's not like hopeless situations. You can get really good, but it takes a while. It takes numerous sessions and until you get the desired result. And a lot of times it's just homogenizing the donor area so you can actually enjoy the promise and the benefit of FUE, right? Sometimes it's a lot easier to fix a strip scar than FUE scars.
Yeah, with this guy, this is Greg Doucette. And I don't know if you can see, maybe
I can guarantee if he didn't come up yet, he will come up soon.
He's one of those guys who says like the hairline doesn't bother him. He doesn't really care about it. You know, he only did it. I'm assuming just for the money. You know, like pretty much that's why he got a hair transplant, because he got paid to do it. But it looks very, very bad. And in certain angles, he tries to make it look better, but it looks very, very bad. He's like one of those guys that, like what Rolandas was mentioning, and he's like one of those guys who just like is stubborn and is saying, you know what, I don't care, it's just hair. Hair is hair, you know. But if you really believe hair is just hair, then why would you even get a hair transplant to begin with? Why would you even step into the OR? Like that you have to have some form of like insecurity about your hair loss to be even willing to hop on a plane, to, you know, get anesthesia and do all that to get your hair transplant, to get your hairline fixed. So it is interesting that some people are waking up. Definitely people on other platforms that were sort of like only looking at it at a cost perspective. You know, that's a big thing too, is that people will say like, oh, well, you know what, I only paid $2,500 for this hairline, so it's okay. You know, it doesn't bother me. I'm alive, so whatever. They look at it from that perspective, but possibly over time it will be that they're starting to look at things and look at hopefully platforms like the Hair Restoration Network. That's why I love the Hair Restoration Network so much, is like you really get a crash course in like hair transplants. Because I'm telling you, if you go on there and you post something, and they're gonna be brutally honest with you. You know, they're gonna be like, no, this looks bad.
That's what I wanted to mention this as well.
Yeah.
That on the like I said earlier, on the Hair Restoration Network is a huge amount of people. They're fairly educated. But on another platforms, back then, for example, I'm running this Hair Loss Conquerors group on Facebook. When like 3-4 years ago, there was like 1,000 people members. Almost nobody knew anything. They were like just coming in, promoting this, you know, bad work, and then you trying to educate them. Like, look, let's have a look at this. Oh, do you see this? And then just people getting upset. But then at some point, so I took some, you know, personal time off. I wasn't really much active in, you know, hair world. Now I'm coming back and I look at it, and there's so many people like I was back then that are just jumping in, and people actually scared to even say something like they used to, you know, like, oh, I just paid, like you mentioned, I just paid $2,500, you know, dollars. I don't see this anymore. Like, just people are actually judge you, but the people who know what they're talking about. So that's, again, it's a very big positive in my view, in my opinion. There's more and more people who are educated.
I hope that we're reaching a turning point, at least in the online information space. But for us, like the amount of emails I get every single day asking for repairs is just continuing to grow exponentially. It's just, and I fear that it's just like Laura said, it's just the beginning. That this is going to continue, because these sort of surgeries have been going on for at least 10 years now, and we're talking industrial style, like thousands of patients per day that were operated like this. And but let's hope it's it's repairable, it's correctable. Yeah. It has to be very individualized. Going back to the original question that started this talk, we do punch outs. Other people try to lower it. It has to be individualized. It can't be a standard solution. A lot of these guys they come with these bad curvatures. Yeah. And it's just not feasible to take out everything. Yeah, it's just not doable. So you try to plant some behind them in the hope that they, by long hair, it will push them down. Yeah? in between. It's just a case by case situation.
This is gonna be such a
Yeah.
massive wake up call. I will definitely gonna pause this clip, this segment, because I can, well, at least for me, I haven't thought much about this perspective that the surgeons wouldn't be, they don't want to take any more patients. I've seen situations. I know personally some people who've been rejected by that doctor, and I even know why they've been rejected because I had a chat with the doctors. But yeah, if it's happening on a massive scale, it's sad, and kind of be a massive wake up call for people, because that's gonna be just another thing to tell them. Like, look, if you don't do your research, you're gonna get poach someone. You might not even be able to repair it. Doesn't matter how much money you're gonna pay.
Yeah, and going back to the point, we need to educate people, and people coming online and posting about their experience is going to turn the tide. But I'll tell you this, 80-90%, like the vast majority, don't want to go online. They don't want to show. They don't want to. So they're going back. They feel shame. They feel this, that. It's a much wider issue that impacts their life in a lot of different areas.
I was just actually curious because, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a huge fan of both of you guys. Like, I just love the psychology, how you approach patients. When you're deciding what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. It's just it's great. It's very refreshing, and it's good to see you still be able to do FUT and FUE at the same time. While majority of doctors will just not doing it anymore, unfortunately. And it's very important because there is always a case for FUT. There's always a case for FUE. And I guess it's probably the best question because most people that are following me, they're interested in my case. So in my case, I had 3 transplants. I had roughly 7,700 grafts via FUE done. So I was Norwood 5A. Well, now I'm currently just a few months after my 3rd one. But the question, so my donor is pretty good. It's still actually pretty good. But after this many FUEs, how about another FUT? What do you think about it?
Depends how your donor looks. If you say it looks good and you need that FUT, you could have it.
So that's another area that's sort of counterintuitive. So what we're doing, we're noticing an uptick of FUTs after FUEs. So the donor area, they're still there, but it's sort of on the verge of becoming too thin. Yeah. But you can still do an FUT and then have another couple of hundred FUEs in the FUT scar. And if the laxity hasn't been touched by the FUE surgeries, you can get a couple of thousand via FUT out of it. And they're completely pleasantly surprised. They're saying, oh, I've had 2 FUEs or 3 FUEs. Can I get another, 800, 1,000 out? I would tell them the option, with FUT, and the legs and the laxative, 2,500, maybe 3,000 we can take out.
A lot of people, they had a lot of big sessions, some even similar like mine, and they were unfortunately not very successful. So in this case, they have very minimal donor left. What's the best way to approach it? And one of those ways would be FUT, in my opinion. Because FUT is kind of spread around.
If they have sufficient density to cover the FUT scar and a little bit of FUE reserves, and anybody still has a little bit of FUE that you can move around and plant in the scar. But if it's really tapped out, like if it's really see-through the donor area, then
as an example, my case, that was me just before my 3rd transplant.
Yeah, you'd still have a bit of
you could, because you don't have that fine. You have
thicker hair.
Thicker.
Yeah.
Actually, my hair is 50 microns.
Okay.
Oh.
But you started out with like a mutant density, right?
Yeah, pretty good density. Can't complain.
Okay. Well, you could still take out some FUE from there, but at some point you think about FUT. Yeah.
No, it's just I'm just taking my case just to think as for people as a potential option, just to show look, if you are in similar situation, is it possible or not?
It is possible because it doesn't look see-through. Sometimes after many FUEs, people tend to have thinner hairs than they used to have.
Yeah.
And with an FUT, you would see the scar. So, but in this case that you showed us, if it's your head,
yeah, this is my head, I swear, and that's with the longer hair.
Is this?
Sorry?
This is before the 3rd surgery, before the last one.
Yes.
Okay.
You can have both.
Yeah. But with even a nice FUT, if you still have laxity, you could out of this you could easily get three and a bit.
3,000. Wow.
Just optically,
Yeah.
if the laxity, I don't know how big your head is, but something like that, 25, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, my head is not that big, but yeah, it's good to know because yeah, I thought as well. Look, even if you miss the boat on the FUTs, you know, it's still possible. And in my case, for information, I wanted to start with FUTs as well, but in my case, you know, I had budget, and I couldn't find unfortunately anyone who can do within my budget FUT, and that's why I went with FUE. Thank God my donor is great, so I'm kind of we're winning there. But there will be people kind of in a similar way, and they, because of all the hype with FUE, they just went with FUE at first, but then rapid progression of hair loss if they were 21 or 22. So it's a possibility, I guess, to just get an FUT. Yeah.
In my opinion, is an FUE and the development as FUE and FUE has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, just incredible. But still, if you want to get the max out of your donor area, neither pure FUE nor pure FUT, the combination of the both will give you the largest yield.
How many grafts do you think you can get more over your lifetime combining FUT and FUE? And if you were to do it perfectly, would you start FUT first and then do FUE, or would you do like Rolandas, like do the multiple FUEs and then do FUT?
From a pure, like just
numbers
from
Yeah.
So logically, it would be 2 FUTs, and then you can do 2 FUEs. You could also plan the FUT scar. Like that will be the rational way of doing things. But life is not always rational. People, depending on what their state in life is, how old they are, do they like short hair, or is short hair just a purely hypothetical type of thing? So this again has to be individually adjusted. How many grafts you can get? I mean, technically, via FUE, you can take out everything to the last. Depends how much are you willing to thin out your donor. You can take out 15,000 via FUE, depending how much you're starting with, what kind of hair characteristics. But usually, let's say you're getting average donor, average size, something's going to be Norwood 5 and 6,000 FUE, then you're starting to think, okay, how much can we take out before it starts looking a little bit thinned out and losing its elegance, and a little bit too much scarring, where the whole idea of cutting your hair really short is not really viable anymore. You can go with FUT, and from the 6,000-7,000, you're up to 11,000 if you do 2 FUTs.
Wow, that's quite a jump.
Yeah,
plus FUE.
and then another FUT. From in our hands, right? Like everybody has different ways of seeing things. That's the best way to maximize your donor is FUT and FUE scalp. Then you can go on to beard, and that's another category. Then
that's another category that we do more often, because all men say they don't need the hairs from you. You do. Many say, just take from here because I don't want it.
And the healing, the healing here is close to miraculous. It's
I've noticed as well.
This is all removed.
Yeah.
I've had probably 1,600. Like this whole thing right here, this whole line, all of it was removed.
Yeah,
it still grew back.
It's important not in one session.
It grew back. So it's crazy because I had it all removed. Like, just take it all, because I like to keep my thing lined up anyway. So I was like, why? These are just pesky hairs. So I had them all removed, and they grew back. I started taking oral minoxidil, and I don't know if maybe they were in the telogen phase. I don't know, but it's like they were just popping up. I was like, I thought I got rid of these damn hairs. But the healing is absolutely incredible. I can't even see where the punches were taken. Like that good.
Fantastic. You have to be careful where you put them, because they're thick and very coarse and wavy.
put
Yeah.
them in
Mid scalp and surround them with normal scalp hair
Yeah.
so they don't stick out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I got them like kind of in my crown here, but they're kind of like mixed in, and sometimes I see a little bit curly, but I'm lucky that my beard is pretty straight. I guess I'm kind of like yours, Sever. Like your beard looks fairly like it's not like that bushy, like real curly. You know,
I
it kind of
turned it. I turned it.
It's pretty.
I get
thick.
the.
is it?
I don't know if I would blend them here. Maybe just in the mid scalp.
Maybe yeah.
Want me as a patient.
Nah.
Why don't we do a live on Rolandas? That
Yeah,
way
we can do that, but we're gonna be overwhelmed with questions. I can guarantee you that.
Okay.
Well, but that'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can coordinate gladly anytime, I'm glad to talk about this, and hopefully we can reach more people.
All right, Dr. Marasano, I'm going to end the podcast here. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Rolandas, and we'll see you next time.